On this channel, we provide useful programming information with practical code examples. This time, it's about CSS properties related to the user interface. You can learn about the content, cursor, pointer events, and resize properties, including their use cases and how to write them. Enabling subtitles will make the code descriptions easier to understand. Let's first look at the content property. The content property is used to add content to pseudo-elements, mainly before or after. This property is used to define text, images, counters, etc., that are not directly displayed inside the element. Its main role is to allow control of decorative content or supplementary information not written directly in HTML through stylesheets. In this example, note is added before the element, and end is added after. These use the pseudo-elements, before and after, respectively. The content property can take the following values. Text. You can add text by enclosing a string directly in double quotes. Image. You can insert an image using the URL function. Counter. Use the counter function to display a counter. Attribute. The attr function can be used to display the attribute value of an HTML element. For example, you can display the title attribute. None. Specifies that no content should be displayed. This is the default state. When using the content property, keep the following points in mind. The content property applies only to pseudo-elements, not regular elements. Since it is not added to the DOM, it cannot be directly manipulated with JavaScript. It might affect layout, so it is commonly used for displaying decorative or supplementary information. Next, let's take a look at the cursor property. The cursor property is used to specify the type of cursor to be displayed when the mouse pointer is placed over an element. You can specify various cursor styles, and it's often applied to interactive elements to improve user experience. The following values can be specified as cursor types. Default is the normal arrow cursor, the browser's default cursor. Pointer is a hand-shaped cursor displayed when placed over a link. Text is an I-beam cursor displayed in areas where text can be selected. Move is a cross-shaped cursor used when an element can be dragged. Crosshair is a crosshair cursor for precise selection. Not allowed is a cursor for regions or actions that are not allowed. Help is a cursor with a question mark displayed when placed over elements that can provide help information. Wait is an hourglass or circular cursor representing a processing state. Progress is a cursor representing an operation in progress. However, it indicates that the user can perform other operations. Grab is a cursor for grabbing draggable elements. Grabbing is a cursor indicating an element is being dragged. Resize is a cursor used when a window or element can be resized. There are different types depending on the direction. N-resize, a resize cursor pointing upward. S-resize, a resize cursor pointing downward. E-resize, a resize cursor pointing to the right. W-resize, a resize cursor pointing to the left. NE-resize, a resize cursor pointing to the upper right. NW-resize, a resize cursor pointing to the upper left. SE-resize, a resize cursor pointing to the lower right. SW-resize, a resize cursor pointing to the lower left. It is also possible to specify a custom cursor using URL. In this example, custom cursor.png is the image file for the cursor. If that image is not available, the browser's default cursor is displayed with auto. The cursor property specifies which cursor should be displayed when the user is over an element. There are various cursor styles available depending on use, and custom cursors can also be set. By selecting appropriate cursor styles according to interactive elements and restricted operations, a more user-friendly UI can be provided. Next, let's look at the pointer events property. The pointer events property is used to control how an element handles events from pointer devices such as mouse, touch, and stylus. Normally, when an element is clicked or hovered over by a user, it receives pointer events, but this behavior can be changed using this property. In the pointer events auto class, the pointer events property is set to auto, allowing normal click and hover events to be processed. The element is clickable, so a message is displayed when it is clicked. In the pointer events auto class, the pointer events property is set to none, so the element does not receive pointer events. Even if the cursor property is set to pointer, the mouse cursor does not change, and other elements underneath become clickable. The pointer events property specifies whether and how an element receives pointer events. You can specify the following values. Auto is the default value, where the element receives pointer events normally. When none is specified, the element does not receive pointer events. The element disables interactions such as clicking and hovering, but other elements underneath can receive pointer events. These values are mainly used for SVG elements. Each value controls whether specific parts of an element, such as fill, stroke, etc., respond to pointer events. It is not commonly used with regular HTML elements. Here are some examples of how to use the pointer events property. Selecting elements you want to disable. The none value is useful for temporarily disabling elements like buttons or links. Usage with overlaid elements. When the position property is set to absolute, or elements are layered using the z-index property, setting pointer events to none on the top element allows pointer events to be sent to the element below. Next, let's look at the resize property. The resize property is a CSS property that specifies in which direction an element can be resized by the user. By using this property, you can allow elements to be resized vertically or horizontally by dragging, or disable resizing entirely. The resize property specifies the directions in which an element can be resized. You can specify the following values. Specifying both allows the element to be resized in both vertical and horizontal directions. Specifying horizontal allows the element to be resized only in the horizontal direction, width. Specifying vertical allows the element to be resized only in the vertical direction, height. Specifying none disables resizing of the element. This is the default value. Specifying inherit makes the element inherit the resize property value from its parent. To make an element resizable, you need to set the overflow property along with the resize property. Resizable elements may require scroll bars, and overflow auto is typically set. Resizing is generally used with block elements such as div and text area. The source code for this video can be downloaded from the official website. If you like, please visit the URL in the description to aid your learning. Thank you for watching. This channel provides practical and useful information about programming. Subscribe to the channel and let's deepen our programming skills together.